Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. I'm your host, Calvin Timms, back with my co-host, Dale. You can find us on Twitter at TDC_Calvin and on Twitter at Dynasty_Dale. Coming with you guys with content all off season. So yeah, it's exciting. Big shout out to Dale. His daughter just turned 2 today, so that was fun. Had a birthday party for that. So, you know, the kids.
Incredibly fun. Yeah.
Kids getting older. It's always stressful when they're small like that. You're putting on the parties more for everyone else than your own kid, right? But
Absolutely.
good times. So this week is going to be a fun week out there for everybody. It is free agency week. You've seen a few moves already get locked up and some trades and unofficial trades getting confirmed and things like that. So I am excited for later on this week. We're going to be able to recap all those, hopefully on Wednesday or Thursday, we're going to recap all the moves. And if it takes multiple episodes, we're going to do it that way. You know, we're going to make sure we cover all the guys. And then later on in the year, we'll probably do a team recap for every single team in the NFL, just to kind of touch on coaching changes, offensive coordinator, you know, some of the big draft changes that they've done, starter changes, trades, whatever. And we'll do that later on this year. But today, before we get too far down the line, we're going to be talking over the tight ends and the updates from the combine that was about a week and a half ago now. And there were some guys that really showed out. This is a very athletic tight end class. You know, there's a lot of hype around it, like usual. I've been saying this for years. Eventually, the tight end position, someone's going to figure out how to break the NFL with the tight end position because it's so underutilized. It's just not efficient whatsoever the way that it's used, and it's a problem, to be honest with you. It's a real big problem. The first person that cracks that is going to just absolutely thrive for the NFL. And, you know, you've got all these athletes coming out now. One of these guys is going to start to show out. So that said, Dale, any thoughts? How you doing this week?
Hey, I'm doing really good. I am stoked to talk about tight ends today. And I can't wait to recap what happens in free agency because I know that's going to be a lot more exciting than the.
No, I actually like this tight end class, man. I know tight end is a boring position, but this is where tight ends are the best. You have hope.
Yes.
You have
100%.
Potential
100%.
around these guys, and then they'll get drafted and they'll get not used for 4 straight years. And then they go to a new team, and it's like, oh, we're going to use you for the skill set that you have. It's like, great NFL. Thank you so much for that. So that said, we're going to go through a couple of these guys, and in reality, there's only about, some of these guys are going to be blockers. Let's be honest. They're not really athletic tight ends that are great pass catchers. So we're going to talk over 8 guys, and Dale, you can feel free to chip in any guys that I don't cover when we go through them, but starting with the list. And you know, we're using the PFF website just for the combine stats because they have it nice and orderly and listed by position, which is great. NFL, please, like, why do I have to go to every, like, can't you just do a full positional ranking on how they put, like, scored in all these categories? I can't believe that we have to go to PFF for this. Like, come on, man. But they've got it all here, nice and orderly, so we'll use them for that. One good thing that they are. But that said, we'll start at the top of the class, and you know, not too much movement for me at the top end. Just a couple guys that got added into the rankings here, but I know that at the top there's a lot of debate on the number 1, number 2, maybe even the number 3 guy, and I think that that's where I'll probably differ from. I mean, I'm in line with a good majority of the Dynasty community, but my number 1 guy is still going to be Michael Mayer from Notre Dame, and you know, he was not the most athletic tight end in this combine, but he's fine, man. I mean, he's 6'4.5", 6'5", whatever you want to call him, 250 pounds. So he's a big boy. You know, good arm length. You know, good wingspan, everything like that. Good hand size. No real measurables that are standing out there. Ran a 4.7 flat. 166 for the 10 split, which is pretty good. It's not the best, you know. It definitely seems like he made up speed on the back end compared to some of the other guys. But, you know, his vertical 32.5, nothing special there. A long broad jump of 118 inches. I don't know that math. That's just under 10 feet. I think it's 9 foot,
Yeah.
9'10", if I'm doing the quick math there.
Yep. It is.
I'm an
Yep.
engineer. Don't worry. I can do that. Basically, there's nothing special about Michael Mayer, except he's just solid. He's like the best well-rounded tight end, in my
Agreed.
opinion, in this draft class. You know, there's other guys that are better pass catchers than him, but he's a very well-rounded blocker as well. And that does get these guys opportunity on the field.
Yeah.
I think that he's going to be the first drafted tight end. A lot of people are putting him on Green Bay with a, young Jordan Love. That could be something pretty solid there. And I don't think you're going to have to wait very long for Michael Mayer to make a good splash in fantasy football, at least. Some of these pass catching guys, they have to find a role. They have to find a priority in the offense. And, it's just, you're looking for everything all at once, where Michael Mayer is going to be on the field probably 80% of the plays just because he's going to be able to block as well. Then they're going to start him a little bit slow. Then they're going to start working him into the progressions and everything like that. And that's where you're going to see him probably take a step forward before some of these other guys. So Michael Mayer, still my number one guy. You see him on the field drills, and he still looks pretty damn good with the ball in his hands.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts about him, number one overall here?
No, I 100% agree with that. So when he played against Ohio State in early September, like, he was catching balls left and right, and that's going to be really good for Jordan Love, especially like if he goes to Green Bay,
Mm-hmm.
or like really any young quarterback. I don't want to compare him to Travis Kelce, because I feel that's a very lofty expectation, but
Yeah.
it really is. It really is. So, I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but I think he could have a very similar skill set to that.
Sure.
Being able to block, being having those good soft hands, knowing where to set in the defense is really critical in today's
Yes.
NFL, because they're playing a lot of zone defense compared to maybe not as much man to man and stuff like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
So like, I think he can be really, really good, and he's very, very solid in understanding that. So
Agreed.
he he is going to continue being the number one until he's drafted.
Yep, I'm with you 100%. And I will say the one thing with the difference, I have seen Kelce as the comp for him. The difference in my mind is I think Kelsey's probably a better athlete than Michael Mayer, but Michael Mayer is probably a better blocker than Kelce. Has the potential to be the better blocker. I'd say Kelsey's probably a better blocker than Michael Mayer year one of his career, but I think that Michael Mayer he just has a better foundation for that than Kelsey did. So it's kind of a difference there. He's more like a Gronk than a Kelsey type, if you ask me. But I do agree that he has that unique ability that Kelsey has to find the holes and the gaps in the defense, and that's very, very valuable. And again, I think that's where somebody's going to come along and find that, and that's going to start to be a priority for the tight end position. Someone's going to utilize that and just break the NFL with it. So I think Michael Mayer, again, number one guy. Number two guy, and a little bit of a teardrop for me, not much. It's the gap is closing. And this is where the big, I guess, debate is, because not the entire Dynasty community is as high on this guy as I am. But that's going to be Darnell Washington from Georgia. And 6'6.5", so 6'7", basically 264 pounds. This is a big boy. You look at his wingspan. Is 83.75. I'm pretty sure it's the longest wingspan ever recorded for a tight end in the combine. So he's just a massive human being there. 11-inch hands. He's huge. He is just huge. He's a unique physical specimen. And then the beauty is, though, he's bigger than Michael Mayer, who ran a 4.7 flat. He ran a 4.64 40-yard dash with a 1.57 10-yard split, which is awesome. 21 on the bench, 31 for his vert. I mean, he's a big dude. Vert is something that's very hard to.
I'm still surprised about that, with how like explosive he was, like in the broad jump and in his 40.
Yeah.
With him not having as good as vert as is compared to some of the other guys who ran similar times.
I will say the vert is something that you can train a little bit, but
Yes.
The
Yes.
ability to jump, you are kind of capped out on. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, he's just not the best jumper. He could jump higher than me, but yeah, he's a big dude. He can't jump super high. But the amazing thing for him, and I think this is being overlooked a little bit, is his was it 20-yard? I'm just shuttle. Yeah, the shuttle. He ran a 4:08 shuttle. That is insanely fast. For
That's
for
very good.
context, everyone is thrilled about Jackson Smith and Jigba, who ran a 3.93, and this guy ran a 4:08. You look at all the other tight ends that
Crazy.
did do it, and they're all in the 4.2s, 4.3s. This guy is so quick. He has that lateral, just like you just talked about, the lateral agility and burst, and that again, it does kind of surprise you a little bit that he wasn't better at the vertical, but this guy is a physical freak. Made one of the freakiest catches in the on the field drills. I think it's going to be enough to push him into the first round. I honestly do. This is the guy that I would love to see Kansas City take as the future replacement to Kelsey. Like, I just think that he's going to be such a solid blocker with his size and what we saw at Georgia. And I will continue to rail on, if they didn't have Brock Bowers at Georgia, he would have been one of the top tight end prospects in this class just because of his production. He was underutilized because they had Brock Bowers. He was the third option in that, at best, he was the third to fourth option in that offense. And, you know, it's not his fault that probably one of the best tight ends of the generation was also on the team, right? So Darnell Washington is still my number 2 guy. I've seen a lot of people down on him, and I just don't understand it.
No, I understand that. I mean, I have Darnell Washington in the same spot I had him before, you know, in spot, but
Sure.
I think that I think the gap really closed with him and probably the next guy about. But you know, I am really excited about him, you know, with him being this physical freak and doing all these amazing things at the combine. You know, I'm just really excited to see how that's going to translate to on the field, because sometimes, you know, combine doesn't always translate to on the field success.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with him, it's going to take him a little bit to kind of get there, in my opinion. So, you know, I don't really think he's going to be a first year success. I can see him, you know, year 2 or 3. You know, it's down the road being more of
Fair.
that guy.
Fair.
So I mean, and I feel that's how a lot of tight ends are, because they are so underutilized in the college game.
Mm-hmm. I will say, if you've ever watched the fantasy footballers, Jason Moore talks about this all the time. He wants to see just the superstar giant people in the end zone, right? Where you just throw the
Hmm.
ball 5 feet up in the air and just let one of these
Yep.
massive freaks of nature go up and
Yes.
get it. And that's where I think Darnell Washington is going to succeed in his career. You can't have a guy that's 6'7", that athletic. Okay, he doesn't have the best vertical. Okay, we get it, but he's just going to be able to, with that shuttle, man, he can change of direction. You have to be on him so tight.
Mm.
And in the red zone, I think he's going to have a lot of touchdowns in his career. That's just my prediction. But yeah, I like Darnell Washington. But you're right. A lot of people I've seen have this guy as the number 1 guy. I've seen him a lot as number 2, 1 or 2. For me, he's number 3. Dalton Kincaid out of Utah. 6'3.5", 246. You know, a little bit smaller of a wingspan, right in line with a lot of these other guys, though. Compared to, you know, when you compare it to Darnell Washington, it's not the greatest, but it is bigger than Michael Mayer.
Right.
I'll give him that. Decent sized hands. He's just kind of the, you know, all around guy. Did no specific testing, so we have no numbers on that. But this guy is an Evan Ingram type of player. Not a great blocker whatsoever. Came from a smaller school in Utah, and he's a great pass catcher. You know, he does know how to run routes pretty well. I've seen a lot of people having him taken in the first round above Michael Mayer, and I'm just I need to know what they're smoking, because I need some of it, because it's just, to me, it's crazy. I don't see anything that Dalton Kincaid does special enough that you'd want to take him over Michael Mayer, who is the well-rounded, you know, guy that you want to see in this team. But that's just my thoughts on him. So I'm down a little bit on, like, personally, I have a little bit of a tier gap between Darnell Washington and Dalton Kincaid. I just think that Dalton Kincaid, everything I talked about earlier with the pass catching only type of tight ends, you have to go to a team that needs you. You have to go to a team that has holes on the offensive side of the ball. You have to be good enough to work your way into production. And unless you're Kyle Pitts, where you're taking number 4 overall, I don't think you're ever going to have priority. And I just don't see that many tight end needy teams that are going to draft this guy, especially in the first round, to be a plug and play piece of the offense in year 1, right? And that's where I just think that he's going to take a little bit of time to develop there. And, when you have guys like Darnell Washington and Michael Mayer, where they're going to be on the field as blockers too, give me that, because I think that I think that they have that catching upside as well, but they're going to see more play because they are blockers in that regard.
Yeah, and I see all that, and with in the tight end position, that is very important to have that blocking aspect. But for Dalton Kincaid, like, I feel he is the most superior and precise route runner in this tight end draft. I really do like Michael Mayer, and I feel he can find the zone. But with Dalton Kincaid, I feel he's going to run the exact route at the right time and just be there for the quarterback. So, I understand he's going to be more of the Evan Ingram type, and stuff like that. But I'm not super worried about that. And I personally have all 3 of these guys that we've talked about in the same tier. I can see them going interchangeably in the draft and kind of where they go, all depending on what the team wants. So, I think the big thing for him in fantasy, especially, I think him and Mayer are going to be the most fantasy relevant this year because of their pass catching abilities, and that are more superior to the Darnell Washingtons and some of the other guys we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I think Darnell Washington's going to be a massive steal if you're in a tight end premium draft, or even a one tight end, non-premium draft. I think that he's going to go in a tight end premium. He'll probably be a mid-second, maybe even like a later second-round pick, and I think that he's going to have so much potential long-term. But I do agree. I think in a tight end premium, you're talking Dalton Kincaid and probably Michael Mayer, fringe first-round picks, probably both of them. It's going to depend on draft, obviously, but at this point in time, the only one that I'm comfortable taking that highly is probably Mayer. I don't think that, if you can get Dalton Kincaid for an early second in premium, I'd be okay with it, but yeah, that's asking a lot right now. So I think that he's going to go. I just think the hype around him is going to get out of control, and that's my biggest concern about him. So we will see. We will see after the draft. That's going to determine a lot for these guys specifically. All right, the last guy here that I want to talk about before we have another little mini tier break for me is going to be Sam Laporta out of Iowa. 6'3", 245. So he's a little bit of he's kind of the dwarf of tight ends. He's shorter, he's stockier. He's a big dude for his size, but he's a little bit smaller there. You can see some of the measurables here on YouTube if you are watching on YouTube. Real quick, while you're watching on YouTube, if you can, leave a comment down below, leave a like, leave a subscription, anything you can. Helps out the podcast. If you're listening to this on audio, go check out the YouTube channel. We got all the, PFF's pretty little mock board here that has all the stats and everything there. It's got all the measurables and everything like that for you to see. But if not, we'll try and cover them here quickly. So we ran a 4.59 40-yard dash, which is pretty quick. That's not slow by any means for a tight end. 1.59 for his 10-yard split, which is above average there for the tight end position. 35-inch vertical. 10'3" broad jump, and then he did the 3-cone and the shuttle and everything like that, and pretty good times for those. Again, it's not elite athlete like you're talking wide receiver, but for a tight end, it's moving pretty quick. So I do like that for him as well. I think that he's going to be someone that's underrated, and Iowa seems to be tight end U for the last few years. They just constantly continue to pump out these good fantasy tight ends for the NFL. So I like Sam Laporta. I'd like to take a shot on him. He's my number 4 guy here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I feel with him being an Iowa tight end, like he has that IQ
Mm-hmm.
that like a George Kittle has, T.J. Hawkinson, even Noah Fant would have. So
Right.
I feel he would go well into a more West Coast offense personally because he's not the best blocker, but I think the biggest thing he has is it's going against them, you know, along with the lack of run blocking ability is his small sample size that we have of him.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately with Iowa, like you don't get a lot of passing, uh, pa-
Passing work.
passing attempts. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, passing work. I mean for Laporta, like he is technically the all-time reception leaders for tight ends at Iowa, but I mean, that's like a year's work, with,
You're right.
like
Right.
like with in the NFL, with some of these high end tight ends. So, I think he can do well in an offense. It just has to be the right place, and it's I mean, it could be like a Chiefs, offense would be great for him. Like somewhere where he can use his football IQ against these, you know, better athletes.
Sure. I'd actually, like Detroit would be a good spot for him too. It would
Yeah.
be another one
Yes.
because Detroit is a sleeper pick for a tight end because, if they were to get like a Dalton Kincaid, for example, their offensive line is so good that they really don't need a
Mhm.
blocking tight end
Right.
specifically. They can use a guy that's more of a weapon. And Sam Laporta, I think that he does have above average because he's from Iowa. They just teach him how to be more well rounded, in my opinion. Like
Yes.
he's a pretty good blocker. I'd say he's probably better than Dalton Kincaid in that respect, but
Yeah.
Dalton Kincaid definitely has the athletic edge in the pass catching realm. But, Iowa tight ends, man, they're always good for fantasy football. So Sam
Always.
Laporta, go invest in him. In a tight end premium, I'd be willing to, depending on the landing spot, again, we'll kind of determine that here in a couple of weeks, but late second, early third for me in a tight end premium, depending on the value of your tight end premium. If it's 1.5, maybe early third. If it's 2 point, maybe he creeps up into the second. But I'm a little bit above average on this guy. He's got the athletic profile. He's got the all-time receiving from Iowa, and it's from Iowa. I mean, they just
Hmm.
constantly produce these guys. So I like Sam Laporta quite a bit. All right, the next tier of guys, I have 4 guys here, all in the same tier. We'll talk about them kind of all together. There's a couple guys that if you go back to our pre-combine, like the right after the season workouts for or rankings for these tight ends, I only had 6 guys here. I've done a little bit more research. A couple guys popped out here at the combine as well. And we're going to talk about 4 guys. We're going to talk about Zach Kuntz, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, and Cameron Latu. So the first one is going to be Tucker, or wait, who was that? Who did I say? Zach Kuntz. That's who it was from Old Dominion. 6'7", 255. This guy, I mean, oh my goodness. You talk about Darnell Washington for a
Hmm.
size freak. I mean, goodness gracious, Zach Kuntz. 83-inch wingspan, so he's right behind Darnell Washington. He's got basically all the same measurables as Darnell Washington, which is just wild there, right? And then, he's 255 pounds, runs a 4.55, which is blazing for the 40-yard dash, 1.57 10-yard split, 23 on the bench, 40-inch vertical. 40-inch
That's
for a tight end. That is
insane.
nuts. Um,
Insane.
10'8" broad jump. His we were raving about Darnell Washington's shuttle time, and it's 4:08. He had a 4:12. 4:12. Goodness, is not much of a difference. He is basically Darnell Washington just from Old Dominion versus
Hmm.
Georgia. So I like Zach Kuntz a little bit more after watching this. Again, I like those physical freak type of guys. We talked about this with the rankings of these guys with the quarterbacks, right? The reason why I'm not investing on Bryce Young as highly is because he's an outlier in the negative sense, right? All of the outliers he has to overcome are negative outliers. This guy is an outlier in the positive sense. He's a physical freak and he's a giant. He's Mo Alley Cox. He's Jelani Woods. He's these type of athletes where, all it takes is one good season and this guy could solidify himself as a top tight end in fantasy football. So give me a stab on that later on. What are your thoughts on Kuntz?
I mean, I agree with you. Like, he is a physical freak, and I honestly feel he tested like I out of the tight ends, like I think I was the most surprised with him
Mm-hmm.
with how he tested. So I mean I do like the physical freaks, like you said. I do like those guys, but the only problem with him is that he went to Old Dominion. Well, like his first 2 years,
Right.
well, like his first 3 years were actually at Penn State. So it's like he was there. He was kind of learning with James Franklin, but uh, like he really shined when he was at Old Dominion.
Mm-hmm.
It's for a couple years, like especially in 2021. So I mean, it's not the best conference.
Mm-hmm.
I feel he played better because of the lack of competition. I feel if he
Which is
played
fair.
in the Big Ten, he probably wouldn't have played as well or had all these great stats.
Right.
So
I feel like
that's
Dalton
what
Kincaid is the
worries
same
me.
thing.
But I think the difference with Dalton Kincaid was he played in the Pac-12, and the
Yeah, fair.
Pac-12 is a much better conference than like it's the I think they're in the Sun Belt Conference.
Yeah, fair,
I
fair,
mean
fair.
these athletes are different, so
That's fair.
they just are. So I think the biggest thing, I mean, it's the biggest thing with Kuntz is that is that competition difference, and and really his ability to be able to separate. I think his size does help him, but I mean, that's it. Like, size does help, but but it can't be your only thing that you got. Like Mo Alley Cox,
Sure,
unfortunately,
sure.
only
Yeah,
has a size.
right,
And that's only going to do you so well.
right. No, I get that, and I just like to push back on Dalton Kincaid because everyone likes to crown this guy, but he is from Utah. I mean,
Yeah.
I will say it is a plus though that Kuntz went to Old Dominion and did well against a lesser form of
Yes.
competition. It's always a red flag when you go to you're against worse competition and you struggle. That's not a good sign at
Yeah.
all. So don't want to double knock him there, but yeah, you would want to see him do it against better quality guys. Next guy here in this tier though for me is going to be Luke Musgrave from Oregon State, 6'6",
Yes.
253. He's got pretty solid measurables, wingspan, arm, hand size, all that stuff. 4.61, so pretty good 40 time there. 154, which is flying for the 10 split there. 36 invert, 10'5" broad. The problem with Luke Musgrave, and I'm the guy that usually tries to discount this as much as possible, but this guy is just the most injury prone tight end out of all of them. And,
Yeah.
that's the one downside. I think that's going to be directly reflected in his draft stock, because he
Mm.
was banged up so much in college that I think that teams are going to look at that. And, if an NFL team is willing to invest in him, I would probably move him up my board a little bit higher. He does have a very good pass catching repertoire in his game, but it's the injury thing that concerns me the most. So, what are your thoughts about this guy?
Oh no, I 100% agree with that. I mean, I do like his size, his speed. Like for him, like he has like all of the attributes that you want to see in a tight end.
Yep.
A modern day tight end.
Yep. I would
So,
agree.
I feel he is another one of those physical freaks, but the problem is that he can't stay healthy, like,
Mm-hmm.
at all. Like, in this last year at Oregon State, like he played only 2 games. He didn't have a catch at all. Oh,
Yep.
excuse me, that was some. Well, like he had 2 catches, or he had 11 catches. Excuse me.
You're good.
And yeah, I can't figure out what stats I'm. So, unfortunately, and then 21, like he had 22 catches for 304 yards. Like that was it. Like that was
Yep.
his best year in college. And I would prefer. mean, I do like everything that you said beforehand. Like he has the size, speed, but like can he stay on the field and can he produce when he is on the field?
Yep. Yep. No, I'm with you 100%. So I think the NFL is going to determine that for us. Again, I
Mhm.
don't want to
100%.
double knock the guy because he's injury prone, but if the draft capital is pretty bad because of that, I'm probably staying away from him, even though I do like him. I'd be willing to take a late flyer on him, but
Mhm.
I'm not going to disregard that completely if the NFL is going to bake that into his evaluation there. So the next guy is going to be Tucker Kraft from South Dakota State, 605, 254. No, these guys are big, man. These guys are solid specimens, right? The one downside though is I think he did run a little bit slower of a 40 than we really wanted to see. Although, I say that and I can't knock him too much because he was a .01 second faster than Michael Mayer, but I think people thought that Tucker Kraft was a better athlete than what he showed out at the combine. I think that's the only downside to his game. 34-inch vert, 10'2" broad, decent at the shuttle and the 3-cone. So nothing major that's a red flag. I just think that people thought he was going to be much better in that regard as an athlete. So he underperformed in that regard. Now, again, he's right there in line with Michael Mayer. So I don't want to knock him too much, but I will say Michael Mayer, we've seen a just consistent, ability to, one, find the hole like we talked about earlier, and two, just to be just solid. He's a very, very solid guy. Where Tucker Kraft is more of a pass catching type of tight end. So, you'd expect him to be a little bit better, and I wasn't wowed by it to be frank about it.
Yeah, no, I see that too. And with him playing, with him playing in Division Two, that's
Mm-hmm.
even like a step down from like Zach Kuntz's
Right.
type of players he was playing with. So and also in 22, like he was injured, in the last half of the year.
Yep.
But that injury history does worry me a little bit. But like he does have really soft hands.
Mm-hmm.
Like he is a big guy, but the only problem is he's not going to run away from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if he has that NFL IQ quite yet to be able really to really transform his game in the next couple years. I can see him being, if he stays in the NFL that long, kind of being like a year 4, 5, 6 guy that might do something, but not any sooner.
Yep. No, I'm with you there. And then the last guy we're going to talk about here is just going to be Cam Latu from Alabama. 6'4", 242, solid measurables. Did no testing of note. I don't remember seeing him doing any of the field work either. So I don't think he really did much other than just meet with teams at the combine.
Mm.
I just want to keep him on here because I think he is a little bit of a sleeper. He could go a little bit higher than people anticipate in the NFL draft, but just a name to keep in mind. I do think that this guy's a decent pass catcher, but yeah, there's a reason why he's the number 8 tight end on the list. So just wanted to keep that name in mind. You have any major thoughts about Latu?
Not really, because we didn't see a whole lot from him.
Yep.
So, I think he's going to be interesting, but I feel he has that dog in him, which I like seeing that in
Sure.
players, and like I like drafting players like that because I know they're going to do whatever they can to get yards, get touchdowns, get X, Y, and Z. But I'm not sure how this guy's going to really change from going from a linebacker to a tight end. I think that's
Right.
gonna I
He's
think
a
that's
Bill
gonna be
Belichick player.
Yes,
He's a
100%. And
future Patriot.
it's gonna be really interesting to see how his game translates into the NFL, and not sure how he's gonna do,
Right.
and I think he's gonna be similar to Tucker Kraft in that it's gonna take him a little bit to transition, and
Yep.
it's gonna be interesting to see how long he stays in the NFL.
Sure.
I can see him being a special teamer, but just me.
Sure. So, is there anybody else that you wanted to talk about? That's my whole list of guys. Like I said, I think most of the other guys here at this were pretty much. I have them penciled in as more blocking, like blockers specifically. I don't see any of them really coming out to be fantasy viable anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. Well, the guy I wrote down was Luke Schoonmaker.
I did see him,
It's from Michigan.
right?
I think with him running a good 40 time and showing some explosiveness, like having good shuttle and stuff like that is going to be very helpful for him.
Right.
But I feel
Good school too.
I feel when he was at Michigan that he wasn't as utilized because their offense is more run oriented compared
Right.
to it's the passing game. So I think the biggest thing going against him is his tiny hands.
Yeah, he does have very small hands.
Yeah, and having small hands is not always a good thing in the NFL.
Him and Kenny Pickett are having a handoff.
I know.
I will say, I'm gonna get crucified for this because I always forget. Is Michigan the Wolverines or are they the Spartans?
Yes.
Okay. Michigan fans
Wolverines
are very sensitive
and
about that.
Michigan State Spartans.
Okay.
100% as they should be.
Yeah, they're very, don't ever mix those up because Michigan fans they will not like it very much. So, no, yeah, he was the one guy, but again, we'll let the draft kind of determine a few of these guys. I mean, Will Mallory from Miami, another guy who had a really good 40, pretty good testing overall, but yeah, we'll just see how the draft values these guys. But that's pretty much it for now. So tight end position, again, this is where it's the most fun because there's a lot of potential around him and a lot of hype, but not much movement for the most part. Just a couple guys, again, got added. Luke Musgrave and who was the other one? Zach Kuntz are the ones that changed from our first round. A little bit of shifting at the top for me. Again, I still like Darnell Washington more than I think the consensus right now, but that's a hill I'm willing to die on right now. I mean, give me the 6'7", 265 guy all day. So,
Right.
I just think that he's special in that regard. And those flashy catches that he made on the sidelines, that's gonna stick in people's minds. Just like Paris Campbell, we were at the NFL Combine where Paris Campbell was the talk of the Combine, right? He was making freak catch after freak catch, and just literally every time he was running a route on the field, it got dead silent in there because everyone was just waiting to see what he would do next, and he killed it. And I think that Darnell Washington has that same sort of vibe. Paris Campbell ultimately was a second-round pick, but I just think that Darnell Washington solidified himself as, if not a first-rounder, definitely a second-rounder in the upcoming draft. And I think that somebody's going to take a very good shot on him. I would love to see him on Detroit. Mentioned them a little bit earlier, but oh man, this guy just seems like a Dan Campbell type of guy. Go get him.
Right. No, I agree. And I think for the NFL draft, I think a lot of these tight ends are rated so closely together. I feel that I think 5 or 6 of them could go in the first 3 rounds.
Sure.
Wouldn't be really surprised about that. So I think unfortunately that might actually depreciate some of their value in the actual NFL draft, but don't let that discourage you from taking a Michael Mayer, later in your rookie drafts, if you're really
tight end needy.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I'm with you. I'm definitely with you there. So, any last thoughts before we get out of here? All right. So thank you guys for joining us for the tight end breakdown. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be back with our guest Mike for the wide receiver. I think regardless, we're going to do the wide receiver breakdown this week, post-combine. I think that's the one that was the most impacted by the combine, to be honest with you. We were hoping to have Mike back, so we're trying to schedule that out. We'll hopefully be back. Stay tuned. And then later on this week, I've got a couple of bonus videos. Probably today, you're going to be getting the DJ Moore one this afternoon. So if you're watching this in the morning and it's Monday, this afternoon, there is going to be a DJ Moore bonus video by me breaking down my thoughts on the wide receiver from the Chicago Bears and Carolina Panthers trade. And then I've got a couple other bonus videos for you guys this week. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of content coming out this week, especially with free agency. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel so you can make sure you're on top of all of it. So thank you guys again for joining us. Have a good night.